I know you can't tell me if you guys are going to step foot back into Cheers, but hypothetically, as an actor, what would that be like for you? Like, I'd imagine that would be the most surreal experience for any actor. Have you thought about or prepared for the emotions that might come with stepping through those doors again?
Well, you know what?
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Grammar, an honor to see you again, sir. How are you?
Thanks, Jake. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for your time. This is one of the best performances of your career, so I really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump into this. Obviously, we lost the real Chuck Smith about 10 years ago, back in 2013, so you never had the chance to sit down and talk with him. But I was wondering if you could imagine sitting in a movie theater with Chuck, watching Jesus Revolution, and when it's over, you lean over and you ask him, "What'd you think about how I did this? What is an aspect of your performance you'd love to get his thoughts on?"
Um, Honestly, the thing you most worry about is if you're doing the baptism right. Um, Greg Laurie taught me. He said, "Go ahead and pinch the person's nose and then drop them in the water." Now, I did not do that. I helped them and I said, just hold your nose yourself if you want to, whatever. And then I'd drop them in. But that was an extraordinary experience, and I hoped he would say that it felt like the Spirit was with you. I mean, that's all I could really say. I had I had occasion to actually sense that Chuck was along for the ride. Sometimes people came up during the filming and said, "I knew Chuck Smith," or Chuck Smith baptized me," or "Oh, Chuck Smith married me and my wife, blah blah blah, this many years ago," and you could see in their faces the light of this guy, and so I felt like I was actually in touch with him, which was a wonderful experience, and that this spirit that I think sort of permeates the entire film and the performance uh, is uplifting. It's joyful, and that
I
was
love
that was
that.
a great gift. Thanks.
I've always said that the best sports movies don't require the audience to be a sports fan. Field of Dreams and Rudy and Hoosiers, you don't need to understand sports to understand why the story is amazing. Is it
Right.
the same thing with movies about faith? Would you say that even if you're not Christian, this movie still has a message for that would really work for anyone?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's about communion with the higher power. I mean, it's about what can happen when you surrender to love. I mean, that's the best thing we got, and it does move mountains. Faith
Yeah.
does move mountains. It's just, I mean, he was facing a horrible, a possibility in his life in terms of what was going to happen to his church and his career and everything else, and he just surrendered at one point and said, "Okay, show me this, and I'll do what I have to do." And he was amazing.
I love that. I want to shift gears for a second, because obviously I have to ask about the Frasier reboot, and I know it's been reported that the story is going to bring Dr. Crane back to Boston, and the legendary director James Burrows is directing a few episodes. I know you can't tell me if you guys are going to step foot back into Cheers, but hypothetically, as an actor, what would that be like for you? Like, I'd imagine that would be the most surreal experience for any actor. Have you thought about or prepared for the emotions that might come with stepping through those doors again?
Well, you know what? There is an element of stepping back into the world of Cheers for Frasier because that's why we went back to Boston. Um, he feels like he has unfinished business there. Like part of that life did not fulfill him enough to like get to the place he had dreamed. He goes back to Boston because he feels like there's an unfinished bit of business for him. He may not go back into that bar. There's a lot of um, things we would have to do in order to kind of like secure rights and blah 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 and business and that is an overlay that sometimes stops us from a certain path creatively. But that path is in this show of coming to terms with Boston for him, coming to terms with the life he didn't live in Boston and the one he wanted to live, and then the one he hasn't lived yet in his life, which is his next chapter, his next um, manifestation will be this life that he now lives in Boston. So I'm
I
I'm,
love it.
I'm very excited about going back there.
We're all very excited. Speaking of sets and settings, I know before he goes to Boston, I believe Dr. Crane is going to step foot in our city right here in Chicago, and you've had such an amazing relationship with our city over the years. You have filmed here as an actor. Does our city give you anything that is different from other locations you've shot in?
Well, in Boss, in the show Boss, it was that's the mayor of Chicago. That was the other character. I mean, the city of Chicago was the other character. The city of big shoulders. That sort of dream big, tough it out, sort of brawling big city with extraordinary architecture, with extraordinary personalities that may actually sort of skate along what might not be a legal path sometimes, but they're able to make gigantic choices and leave and let the wake just have what it may in its path. But I love the city. I love having a Gibson at Gibson's, and that's one of my favorite places in the world. A good piece of meat and a nice cocktail, and I have had irreplaceable times there and irreplaceable creativity there. When we were shooting in the middle of the night with that skyline behind us, it just felt like it transported that show, Boss, to a dynamic world that you could believe in. And it was just it was a one-off. It was one of those things you just recognize as, a true lie, which is, the ultimate essence of a great piece of art. It's not true, but it feels true.
Absolutely. We're having our mayoral election here in about 12 days here in Chicago. So any potential advice for either our returning mayor or a new mayor filling that seat?
Well, change in Chicago is not necessarily a thing you really ever get. We've seen no matter who puts the robe on, it might not necessarily be a different town. I'd love to see the violence in Chicago end. I'd love that to happen because I love that city. I love the people in it. I love all the people in Chicago. And I have been embraced by everyone in Chicago when I've been there. And that light in their eyes is something I would love to see on everybody's face all day long, every day, all year long. And I'm not sure the current mayor or the one that might become mayor can answer those questions and make that happen. But boy, I sure would love to see it happen. And only the people can do it. Only they can make it happen. Their government won't make it happen.
Mr. Grammer, I always love getting the honor to speak with you, sir. Next time you're in town, let me know. I'd love to take you to Gibson's for a piece of meat and a cocktail. Congratulations on one of your best performances and thank you for always, you and I have spoken many times. I appreciate you always being so kind to me, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you again. Take care.
Bye.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.